Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about building a life portfolio. And I'm Paul Porter, professor here at Sonoma State University.
I'm Mark Nelson, entrepreneur in residence at Sonoma State University School of Business and Economics.
And we're very excited to be talking about this topic, building a life portfolio. And in a couple of our previous sessions, we've talked about becoming an economic unit of one, and really developing a relevant purpose, et cetera. So once you have developed and begin to see yourself as an economic unit of one, now you have to apply that and develop yourself over a longer period of time. And the process that we're terming or using for this skill or developmental process is called building a life portfolio. And it has to do with people viewing you and deciding, would they buy you, but more importantly, would you buy yourself? So Mark, you want to talk about a little bit about that concept to get us started?
Sure. So I think this is kind of really where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Building a life portfolio is really something that happens over the span of a lifetime, or at least over the span of a period of time. If you look at relevant purpose, it's really aligning your inner purposes and passions with your external realities. Economic unit of one is taking your skills and your experiences and creating ongoing alignment with what is going on in the world so that you have work, finances, self-actualization, whatever it may be. But building a life portfolio is something that happens that's much more holistic. Building a life portfolio has to do with not just financial mechanics and professional mechanics, but really spans into bigger worlds. And it's really an expansive, relevant purpose measurement tool. And it's also something that we should be using as somewhat of a GPS and a roadmap. And I would say that there are elements like financial, professional, personal, health, physical, spiritual, intellectual, mental, all these different buckets that make up kind of a personal balance sheet. And we can use that portfolio both as a tool to assess where we are today and where we want to go tomorrow. Myriad ways. So it's really got to, I think, again, it's really where the rubber meets the road. And when you talk about building personal asset, what the portfolio does, it allows you to look at it in a very broad way, but also in narrow buckets.
You talk about the balance sheet. Maybe let's go into that a little bit more, because people think of a balance sheet again in financial terms.
Yeah.
But it really, you mentioned health, you mentioned perhaps spiritual.
Oh yeah.
Part of it, your relationships, and I think one thing we've talked about, if you're bankrupt in any of those areas, your whole balance sheet is going to kind of go off.
So let me use myself as a personal example. When I went away to school, which I alluded to earlier, went away to college, my father said to me, Mark, you're going away to college to get a job, so I would suggest you get a technical skill. And that was really good advice. And I went to Price Waterhouse and I got my CPA and the whole gig, but it was very evident to me that there was an element that was out of alignment. It was really good advice because I got in the game and allowed me to do some exploration, and it's something that I would tell my son, but I would also say, Mark, and follow your passions, meaning start reading what's inside of you. What the portfolio does is it starts to allow you to measure the things that really are exciting to you, the things that are really meaningful, and by the way, finds out where you might be a little lax. Let's just say you are really challenged to work towards a professional career that is going to pay you lots of money. That's your goal and your objective. Well, many people do that and they're wildly successful at it, but it may be at the expense of their health or their relationships or their emotional well-being. To me, when you're looking at a life portfolio, yeah, you're looking at the financial elements, the professional elements, but you're also looking at these different attributes, these different parts of your asset and liability sheet, because it doesn't do you any good to make zillions of dollars if you're miserable. If you're miserable, or if you're sick, or if you're not fired up about what you're doing. So it's, again, a tool that you use both to measure and then to create a roadmap, a GPS of sort, to take your next steps in each one of these columns.
Great, yeah. You know, another concept that you just mentioned too is this get in the game thing. Of course, we want people to develop a life portfolio with a rich, full balance sheet, et cetera. But there's also a concept that you've talked about, particularly when talking with young people. Get in the game. What does that mean?
Well, what get in the game means exactly what it means. It means, like, let's say life is a sport and you're trying to build your life portfolio. It's hard to really assess your assets and what makes you excited and what gets you really going if you're not in the game playing the sport. For example, if you like golf, all right, you can watch videos. We talked about this, I think, in another session, or we will be talking about it in another session. We talk about watching videos, getting coaching, reading books. There's nothing like picking up a golf club and swinging a golf club over and over again. Okay, so to me, getting in the game is actually going out and practicing something. In addition to that, when you play the game, you learn about the game. So as it relates to the world of work, you know, first of all, hopefully during the course of your university career, you're starting to develop a pathway towards what you're going to do upon graduation, because a university degree no longer buys you a ticket to employment. We all know that. We heard the statistics earlier. What you have to be doing is starting to gauge, what do I need to do from a networking perspective? What do I need to be doing from a career pathing perspective? What educators should I be working with? And what educators are going to do to mentor me, to take me to the next step, and so that I'm ready? And by the way, we would hope that over the course of time, people aren't waiting to get in the game when they're walking across getting their diploma. They've already are in the game because they're going to have a job after they graduate. That to me is the perfect world. In the accounting and finance world, they actually do a pretty good job of this. You have a pathway. All the CPA firms come on campus to many campuses. They interview the really good students, and there's a real farm system. But there's no reason why we can't be doing more of that in university and in the school systems. By the way, unleashing passions, unleashing purposes, creating alignment with the external skill sets that people are developing. And then once they're developing those skill sets, finding a ways to helping the young people get in the game. Because once you're in the game, you're going to find out what parts of the game you like, what parts of the game you don't like. What other games do you want to play in? So to me, it's about getting experience. Okay. And by the way, taking care of yourself. Finding some self-sufficiency so that you're not, hopefully, or young people aren't playing video games at the age of 25, sitting on their parents' couch.
But I don't want our listeners to be thinking that getting in the game has to be a perfect choice. There's a lot. I've seen so many young people out there who are preparing and reading and preparing, and just so they can take the first step that's just perfect. And I think, as you're saying, at least I would echo that, is that you don't know what the first step's going to be. You don't know if the first step you take is going to be relevant. You got to get in the game. That's where you really learn the right direction of your steps. So the getting in the game can be almost anything.
Paul, you don't know what the 21st step's going to be. Yeah. I'm 52 years old. I'm still getting in the game. I'm at Sonoma State University as entrepreneur in residence. It's a whole new world to me. I'm learning stuff about the system, by the way, that I love, and I'm learning stuff about the systems that's challenging. And so to me, though, what's really exciting about it is I can take that game experience and I can apply that into the next game that I'm in. And you know, life isn't necessarily a game, but it is a sport. But let's get in and play. Let's challenge ourselves. Let's fail. Let's get excited and celebrate when we do things that are really successful. And let's learn and be clinical about the things when we make mistakes. I think people are afraid to fail. We put so much pressure on kids, or kids feel so much pressure. And the reality is, look, I can't even tell you how many careers at the age of 52. I'm now navigating between myriads of worlds. That's fun, that's exciting. That's what I want for everybody.
So stop rehearsing and give it a try. Yeah.
Get in the batter's box, shoot the free throw. You know what I mean? Pick up the paintbrush, whatever the heck it is.
Well, you use a concept or a term also that sometimes people go bankrupt.
Well, when you talk about the balance sheet, the personal balance sheet, I think I alluded to it earlier, and that is, you know, somebody can be so committed to one of the buckets, to one of the elements on a balance sheet, whether it be their career or whether it can be their physical shape, whatever it is, that they forget about the other buckets. to me, if you really want to have a harmonious life, you have your eye on all these buckets. And there's going to be times where one bucket suffers a little bit from another bucket. I'll use myself right now as an example. You know, this concept of putting this MOOC together and some other things that I've got online course, among other things, has been a little bit overwhelming. I'm learning that I need to step back, take pause, take a reevaluation of where my buckets are, making sure I'm getting good exercise, eating the right foods, balancing how I'm spending my time, not responding to emails and Twitter and everything else all the time, but really focusing on what's important. Because I got a kid that's 18 and a kid that's 4, right? Same wife, by the way, 18 and 4. And one's in a world of preschool and the other one's getting ready to go to college. So you got to be in that world, you know. So just being aware of the different buckets and taking pause and seeing where you might be potentially going bankrupt in one or the other, and then filling that bucket up a little bit, you know, and maybe letting another bucket go down a little bit. Balance.
Balance. And as you're talking about going between these buckets, I'm thinking of a term we've talked about in mental mobility.
Oh yeah, well that's the beautiful thing about navigating between worlds. Navigating between worlds creates mental mobility. You decrease your fear. You begin understanding risk because you're going into worlds that may be a little bit foreign to you. But to me, as I mentioned earlier, the more you go into foreign worlds, the more you learn about yourself, and the more you realize that the worlds aren't that scary. There's a lot more similarities than there are differences. And so if we can start creating a little bit less fear, taking a little bit more, I wouldn't even say taking more risk, understanding risk will allow you to take good risks and eliminate bad risks. And then this mental mobility both is a result and then also a cause of going into new worlds.
So to me, in the schools, what this is about is establishing an atmosphere in our classrooms with our teachers, with our students, where students see themselves as constantly developing their own life portfolio. I would love to see teachers start to apply this concept as they teach skills and aptitudes, et cetera, to their students. You think it has a place in education?
Oh, are you kidding me? And the beautiful thing is we've already seen, we're going to have some clips, we have clips, you may have seen some clips of people, teachers, educators that are doing it, which to me is really exciting because if you can create an awareness around, you know, and demysticize some of this stuff, that opens up eyes and that opens up doors for other educators to do it. So we're going to create some awareness around this. We're going to hopefully inspire some people to do it through showing some teachers. And then over the course of time, you know, we'll really, particularly when we blow out some of these subjects, hopefully in future courses, we'll start really equipping with people on how to do it.
Great, great. Thanks, Mark. Well, we hope this session today has really caused you to think a little bit about developing a life portfolio, what you can do for yourself and your students in this regard. And we urge you to look at some of our follow-up clips of some teachers that are doing exactly that. So thank you very much, Mark.
Been a heck of a run.
All right.